Human Rights and Gender at the Global Compact, as well as Lena Al-Kadumi, who's a manager on gender equality and social sustainability at the Global Compact. And then from UN Women's side, we're joined by Anna Falth, who's the global head of the WEP Secretariat at UN Women, as well as Miwa Park, who's just joined recently as a consultant at UN Women. And as many of you are likely familiar, the Women's Empowerment Principles are a joint initiative between the UN Global Compact and UN Women. So both of our entities' teams work on the Women's Empowerment Principles and stand by to help with any questions you may have or any issues with the sign-on process or anything that we can do to help. And with that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to both Anna and Cynthia to provide some welcome remarks and opening remarks. So first of all, Anna, over to you.
Thank you so much, Megan, and welcome everyone. It's so exciting to be here with so many people from all over the world. Welcome all of you. So why are we here? I'd like to give you just one figure on why we are here. It will take us 268 years to achieve women's equal opportunities in the economy. That's why we're here. This is the goal that we are working towards to get that down to 0. So why are you here? You're here to help us, and we are here to help you. We will help the Women's Empowerment Principles that you will learn more about today will help your company to become a very attractive company to talents. If you're a B2B company, to business partners, if you're a B2C company, to consumers, and of course to investors and the broader society, because of your contribution to Sustainable Development Goal 5 on gender equality and women's empowerment. And today we will talk about what the principles are and how they line up to the SDG 5, and showcase some of the resources and tools that we have prepared for you to become that great gender champion as a company. And because we know that we can only advance on this agenda if we work together. Business has a great role to play to help us with this agenda at a global scale. You are the ones that are hiring women. You are the ones that make decisions whether to promote them. You are the ones that equip them to become great leaders in the economy. You are the ones that decide whether women entrepreneurs are part of your supply chain. You have so much power, and we want to work with you to make sure that that power is being brought into action for gender equality and women's empowerment. And we want to make sure that you are not only focusing on the 3 pillars of the Women's Empowerment Principles on workplace issues, but also when you feel that you're ready, you have done your work internally, that you also go to the marketplace and explore opportunity on the commercial side of your company on how you could leverage and build new markets, develop new customer segments that include women and girls in the world. And also then to work with them to make them ready and capacitated to engage with your company in local communities. So that's why we're here. We're here to kind of together work on this 268 figure that we got from the World Economic Forum, and the Sustainable Development Goals that we have developed together with the private sector and other stakeholders as the UN system, and to work specifically on SDG 5 and really advance and make sure that by 2030, we have figured it out. So I welcome all of you, and I would like to hand it over to Cynthia to provide some additional opening remarks. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Anna. Good morning, everyone. So honestly, I always like following Anna because she's always so comprehensive, and that means I don't have to say very much. You know, she's handled it and framed it absolutely. I mean, all I would add is that really, really happy to have you all here. As Anna said right at the beginning, we are really in an urgent place. The work around women's economic empowerment, around gender equality, is not heading in the direction that we would like it to go. It's not heading in the direction that we anticipated or expected, and it makes this work that we do even more important, even more critical. And so we really are very excited when companies, take on this work, accept that it's necessary, and partner with us in advancing the needle on this. So we welcome all of you to this 101 session, and we hope that it helps set things up for you, answer some questions. It provides you with an opportunity to understand a little bit more about what you can do, understand how we can help you on that journey. And it really is a journey. It's just the beginning, and we hope that we can work with you to support you in this endeavor. And we have a wonderful team here at UN Women and UN Global Compact, and we always want to work with you to help support your work, your priorities, and help you go along this journey in a way that is, supported to your sustainability journey. So thank you very much for taking the time to join us today to take part in this. And you have a wonderful moderator in Megan and in Lena. And you will always be able to contact us, Anna as well, and Niwa, and contact us to find out how, any help you need. We are here to support that. So welcome, thank you for joining this, and I will hand over to Megan.
Great, thank you so much, Anna and Cynthia. Before we get started on the actual content of the webinar, I also just wanted to flag the option to write in the Q&A in the chat throughout the webinar. If you have any questions at all, feel free to click on the bottom and that little Q&A button, and you can write your answers. And both the UN Women and UN Global Compact teams will be responding to people's questions throughout the chat. And then we also do have the chat function, and I really love seeing everyone introducing themselves and where they're calling in from in the chat. So feel free to continue to do that as well and connect with your peers on this. And with that, I'll hand it over to my colleague Niwa from UN Women to talk a little bit more about the 7 principles themselves.
Hi, everyone. Okay, next slide. Hi, everyone. My name is Miwa Park, and I am consultant at the UN Women's Web Secretariat. Today, I'd like to walk you through the principles of WEPs. So Women's Empowerment Principles, or WEPs, provide a holistic framework for companies to share lessons learned on gender equality and links to their bottom line, how to make progress in this area, and how to track results in the workplace, marketplace, and community, and drive positive outcomes for societies and business. It was launched in 2010 by UN Women and Global Compact. So before I go on to the principles themselves, I'd like to quickly mention why is it important for companies to join the WEPs. Well, because it's important having a company that works on gender equality. Moving towards this direction helps company on better talent acquisition, higher employee retention and satisfaction, increase productivity and better decision making. And also it helps attracting investors and help companies perform better. So we believe that gender equality is not just women's issues, but rather it's a smart business strategy. In fact, a UN Women's 2021 study that studied the largest 350 companies in G7 countries show that the WEP signatories outperform their competitors on 12 key gender performance indicators. With that, I'd like to move on to the principles. So we have 7 principles shown here. Thank you. First, principle 1 is a standalone principle. It builds up a foundation for WEP's work. It requires CEO's commitment and buy-in from higher management on the gender action. And then principle 2, 3, 4 are focused on the workplace, while principle 5 focuses on the marketplace, 6 on community, and principle 7 as an underpinning principle to measure the results. Now, next slide, please. Thank you. So principle 1, well, WEP's commitment has been made by approximately 7,000 CEOs around the globe as of today. Well, it's crucial for the CEOs to make this commitment for the sustainable follow-through of the initiative by the companies. With the CEO support, it's possible to make gender equality and women's empowerment a top strategic priority in that company. and WEPs can become part of the corporate sustainability strategy, day-to-day operations, and changing organizational culture at the end of the day. Well, through the years, we have witnessed what a difference it makes if the CEO had made this commitment, and by doing it publicly, it has an implication for the sustainability of the commitment. Next slide, please. So next slide, and next principle is about treating all women and men fairly at work without discrimination. Well, treating all men and women fairly at work aligns with the international human rights principles. It means paying equal remuneration, fostering inclusive workplace culture, removing gender-based discrimination from all policies and practices. Well, it sounds obvious, but not happening on the ground, unfortunately. And it sometimes takes thinking outside of the box to achieve this. So we have a great example from a bank in Spain. They had a challenge where men were prone to move up the ladder in the company, while many women were stalled in the same position for years. So they took a look what's happening in the company, and they had a culture that men stayed longer at work after hours, while women were leaving early to go back home to take care of children, pick up the children, take care of domestic duties. The bank felt this may resulted in women with lesser chances of career progression. So the bank decided to make an interesting policy. They decided to close their offices at 7 p.m. sharp so that no one can stay after and stay work after hour, whether it be men or women. What did actually resulted in leveling the playing field for women and men. So they were able to have more women actually climbing up that ladder in the company. So you can think about what your company could do, building on other companies' experiences like this. Next slide, please. So this principle touches on employees' health, well-being, and safety. It also includes how people get from and to work, from safety standard at work. But also it can expand onto something you may not think it's an area of a business. It can actually expand into ensuring employees' well-being beyond workplace by supporting the victims of domestic violence. The companies may feel that it's none of their business, but it's everybody's business to deal with the victims of domestic violence. Women who suffer from domestic violence have huge implications on the company. Their absenteeism at work, their lower productivity, and their lack of presence or lack of being able to focus at work. So that some companies, particularly during COVID, they took a stand on helping victims of domestic violence. For instance, they did a training on to know where to call, to be there for them, training to observe what the signs of somebody who's been abused from home. So what are the things that you could do while you're working remotely, right? So you're not letting this pass by and talking that, oh, this is none of our business. No, the company actually helped, and it resulted on helping the victims of domestic violence going forward. And also, this principle could include menstrual health. It has been a rising topic from other companies in the region. So there is a company that introduced an interesting policy. So a company introduced their menstrual hygiene program, and they put sanitary napkins in the toilet, and their argument was quite interesting. No one takes toilet paper from their desk to toilet when they go to toilet. Why should they do that with sanitary napkins, right? It makes sense. So they did that, and there's many things that your company can do to achieve this principle. Next slide, please. So education and training can open venues for women's advancement at all levels and across all business areas. It is to facilitate training for women, to support women to advance in the company either horizontally or even vertically. We encourage companies to look at areas where there's underrepresentation of women, such as IT, sales, etc., and let women be able to move across those areas. And also this includes training about gender equality in the workplace. It means to have regular training that follows up on the commitment of the CEO and let them know what it actually means to be a gender equal company. For instance, you can do a workshop on unconscious bias And another UN Women's initiative, He for She, we do work with them together to have a special training specifically for men. It's called barbershops. What we do is we get men together and let them talk about gender equality and women's empowerment so that they may build up their vocab and understanding of the issue so that they feel more comfortable when they're speaking about this topic around the group of women. Next slide, please. And so principle 5, we believe that companies can influence the wider business ecosystem and their business partners. It means having inclusive supply chain policies, standards, and advertising. So we do encourage the WEP signatories to promote gender equality and WEPs in the supply chain. So hold the company's supplier to account that they are actually making positive progress toward gender equality. What we do is 3 areas in this principle. First, we try to reduce gender stereotype in advertising and marketing, where also another UN Women initiative on stereotype alliance is working on. So basically, they look at the advertising campaigns and marketing campaigns of a company and reduce stereotype or materials that creates bias and stereotypes. And then we are trying to promote gender responsive procurement and support women entrepreneurs on the field. Next slide, please. So principle 6 is an important one on community initiative and advocacy. It means to engage with girls and women in local communities. Well, by doing so, the companies can build their brand values in local communities, at the same time support the local community, right? Understanding what the needs are in that community and maybe doing a training that your company can provide. For instance, if you're a tech company, you could offer a training on digital literacy for the girls or women who hasn't had that opportunity. So for instance, your company can think about what you can do in your community. So it can be various other activities as well. Next slide, please. So we're at the last principle, but I personally believe this is the most important one as an economist. It's measurement and reporting. So measuring and reporting mechanisms are crucial to monitor and track performances and progress for any other projects or policies. And especially if you want to see how your company is evolving or how your company has performed, it's important that you measure and you report. So it's actually how we are being approached by the investors at WEPs because since COVID happened, investors are increasingly taking a look at gender equality as lenses for their investment to measure return on investment and risk. So there is also a function in when you join the WEPs to do this. So we highly recommend you do it so you can see how your company performed before signing WEPs and after signing WEPs. Well, that was my part. And now Megan will take you through the steps of WEPs tools, including how to join WEPs. Thank you so much. And over to you, Megan.
Great. Thank you so much, Miwa, for that comprehensive overview of each of the 7 principles. And thanks everyone too for continuing to engage in the chat and the Q&A. If you do have any questions about any of the 7 principles or anything that I'm about to talk about when it comes to sign-on of the WEPs or resources available to signatories, please feel free to continue to write those in the chat. So signing up to the WEPs is a simple 3-step process. First, you visit www.weps.org/join, and then you'll see this page that's copy and pasted below on the second half of the screen. Step 2 is to download the CEO statement of support and have it signed by your company's CEO. And as you can see in the second paragraph here on the screen, the CEO statement of support is available in a variety of different languages. So wherever your company is headquartered, whatever your native language is, feel free to sign it in that language. And then submit the signed CEO statement of support along with the online application form. And the CEO statement of support is just a 1-page statement that says that your company is placing advancing gender equality at the top of their corporate agenda, and that they think that it's a main issue across the whole company. And we have the CEO sign the statement of support because we want gender equality to have top level buy-in from the very top person in the whole company. And then we also want to communicate that gender equality isn't just an issue that should sit in the HR department or in the DEI department, but rather it's something that should be prioritized across the company holistically. And then once you sign up to the WEPs, we like to talk about the WEPs as being a journey that signatories take. So step one on the WEPs journey is, of course, to consider whether you do want to sign up to the WEPs or not. And I think that's where many of you are today joining us here for this webinar, to understand a little bit more about the principles and the sign-on process and why you should sign the WEPs and why gender equality is so important to prioritize as a company. Then once you decide that you should sign on to the WEPs and that it's an issue that your company prioritizes from the top level, then you do the 3 steps that I outlined in the previous slide, and you sign on to the WEPs and become a signatory by signing the CEO statement of support and submitting it with the short online application. Step 3 then, once you become a signatory, is to activate the different principles that we just heard Miwa speak to. And the principles can be very broad and holistic, which is really great because they cover a variety of different topics, of course, relating to gender equality. And when you sign up to them, you're committing to advance gender equality across all these different issues that Miwa just outlined throughout the 7 principles. But sometimes they can be almost overwhelming on where to begin this process of activating the WEPs. So then for that, we have step 4, which is to engage with the WEPs. And for this step, we have a variety of different resources available to existing signatories, whether that's different tools, e-learnings, case studies, videos, events, etc., where you can learn more on how to make lasting progress on the different 7 principles. Then step 5 is to sustain. Once you start engaging with these different resources that we have to make lasting progress on gender equality and corporate sustainability through the WEPs, then we want you to sustain that progress and keep making progress across different issue areas. You can get started on progress on the WEPs by focusing on one principle, but they are supposed to be a holistic commitment where you commit to advancing gender equality across these different issue areas in your company. So then once you start making progress in one area, you have to sustain that progress and keep making progress, but then also look at different areas too, where there's further improvement to be made. And then step 6 directly ties in with principle 7, which is to report on progress. So once you start making progress and then you sustain this progress, you keep making the progress, then it's important to track this progress and then report back, ideally publicly, to hold yourselves really accountable to continue making this progress on gender equality and corporate sustainability through the WEPs. And then we have sort of a step 7 that's ongoing, which is to reactivate. So then once you make this progress in like one specific principle or one specific area of gender equality, then continue the progress in other areas as well, where you continue to engage with other resources and then sustain progress in this area as well, and then report on that. To help you along with the WEPs journey, we've created this WEPs toolkit, which you can find in this URL up on the top right under the WEPs resources, which includes different guides, insights, public policy templates, case studies, etc. You can see it along the left and the right of the toolkit, all the different resources included to help your company advance gender equality across the workplace, the marketplace, and the community. Additionally, if you just go to weps.org/resources, there's even more resources available there to help your company with implementing the WEPs. Here's a couple different examples too on that webpage that I just mentioned. We have more topic-specific resources available, such as the COVID-19 shadow pandemic and how you can use the WEPs to ensure that domestic violence in light of COVID-19 doesn't continue in your company or in your beyond your company in the community as well that your company operates in. Then we have more specific issue area focuses, such as the resource in the middle that talks about principle 5 and implementing gender responsive procurement in your company too. So making sure you look at the workplace dimension of the WEPs that Miwa talked about, but then also the marketplace and community dimensions as well. And then on the far right, you can see an example case study that we have of the WEPs in action. There's different case studies focusing on different issues related to gender equality and corporate sustainability, as well as different companies from around the world that you can read their case studies on as well. And then the bottom left is the WEPs brochure, which is just your go-to guide for anything WEPs. This talks even more about the different principles. This talks more about the reporting process, etc. You can find a lot of information in this 80-page resource that's just all about the WEPs. And then the final resource here noted is the WEPs Transparency and Accountability Framework, which helps you implement Principle 7 of the WEPs, which is to report on progress that you've made. These are just a couple of the examples available to signatories to help you along with implementing the WEPs in your journey towards gender equality within your company. There's a lot more even included on the website as well. And then here's a couple of different action tools that we have as well for companies who have signed the WEPs to really start making action on implementing the different principles. So first we have the WEPs Gender Gap Analysis tool, and this is an online 18-question survey that companies can take to identify gaps and areas of improvement when it comes to gender equality in their own company. So the WEPs Gender Gap Analysis tool is it's fashioned after the WEPs, but then it asks more specific questions on what your company is doing to implement the different principles. And then at the end, you'll get a score where it shows aspects of the WEPs that you're doing really well on, and then some aspects of the WEPs that's a gap in your journey towards gender equality and areas of improvement with that. So you're supposed to use this tool to notice the gaps, so then you can create more of an action plan. So then we also, for existing signatories, have the Gender Action Plan module, which talks more about the process of creating an action plan based on these gaps identified in the WEPs Gender Gap Analysis tool. Then you also have the WEPs toolkit that I just briefly spoke about that includes more resources to help you along with this journey and really allow you to learn more about the different aspects of gender equality that's been noted as areas of improvement. So this includes different thematic guides, templates, and how to implement the WEPs. And then, of course, with the final goal of advancing gender equality and women's empowerment in the workplace, marketplace, and community. And then also just to note, the WEPs Gender Gap Analysis tool is open for any companies. WEP signatories are not, but we do encourage companies to first sign up to the WEPs and then take the tool as a way to implement the WEPs that you've already signed up for as a commitment. And on the top right, you can see the Learn logo. And this is a whole platform, including like the Gender Action Plan module that is available to WEP signatories to learn more about corporate sustainability and specifically gender equality in the workplace, marketplace, and community. And then here's just a quick purpose of an action plan. This is why you should really want to make these steps towards improvement on gender equality. First, to correct past and present forms of inequality and prevent any future occurrence of discrimination and bias. Second, to ensure all company strategies, policies, programs, and activities are gender responsive and transformative. Third, to develop or deepen the understanding of gender equality among all stakeholders within and outside the organization. That goes back to the point that we keep reiterating, where the WEPs are supposed to not only focus on the workplace and what happens within the four walls of your company, but also then what happens in the marketplace with the different companies you interact with on a day-to-day level, your different suppliers, different stakeholders, etc. And then, of course, also in the community, recognizing that your employees are part of a community. They don't only exist as employees. And then finally, again, reiterating Principle 7 and how important it is to track progress in real time to assess where it stands on gender equality. So with that, I'd like to open up the floor to our three wonderful panelists today. So we're joined by Olu Koki from Zed Motors, Sherry Advenero, Chief Audit and Compliance Officer of Ecoelectricity, and then Harriet McCole, Sustainability Lead and Marketing Director from Boozies. all of these companies have signed on to the Women's Empowerment Principles. So we hope that through this panel and a couple different questions that we have for them, that all of you joining us here today can get a better understanding of why it's so important to sign the WEPs and some real company examples on what they're doing to implement the WEPs and how the WEPs have helped accelerate their progress on gender equality and corporate sustainability. So with that, I'd like to open it up to our three panelists. It would be really great if first, before we get into the different questions, if you could all introduce yourselves. So maybe starting with Sherry and then going on to Olu, and then finally hearing from Harriet May Cole. If you could just say your name and what you do in your company and where you are dialing in from, that would be wonderful.
Okay, thank you. Wonderful program so far. As you introduced, my name is Sherry. Well, I hope everyone can hear me. My name is Sherry Adegbenro. I'm the Chief Audit and Compliance Officer for Ecoelectricity. It's within the utility industry, of course, and it's based in Lagos, Nigeria. And I oversee the audit function of the entire company and also the compliance, working with other departments within the company. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry.
Hello.
Thanks so much for joining us here. Sorry, Olu, go ahead.
Yeah, hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Olu JP Kukoi. I'm the founder of Zed Motors. And before that, it's an electric mobility company operating in West Africa. And before that, I started in 2012 a solar energy company called Focus Energy. We still do solar home systems, but now we do more of productive use of energy equipment installation like solar water pumps, refrigerator freezers, and on that we are adding electric motorcycles. Yeah. So nice to meet everyone.
Thank you, Olu.
I'm calling right now from Benin Republic in Cotonou, 2 hours from Lagos.
Wonderful. Thank you, Olu. And then Harriet.
Hello, everyone. My name is Harriet. I'm the Marketing Director and Sustainability Lead at Boozies. Boozies is a software company. We are mainly specialized in developing social protection information management systems to help bridge inequality gaps in developing countries across the globe. Yes, thank you.
Great. Thank you all so much for joining us here today. And we're really excited to hear about what each of your companies are doing on the WEPs. So I think just to get started, it would be really great to hear from each of you on why your company signed the WEPs and then what some of the benefits of doing so were to your company and why you signed. So Sherry, if we could maybe start with you and then go in the same order and to answer that question, that would be great.
Sure. So we signed, I believe last year, 2021. At that point in time, we actually had a male MD at that time. I mean, one of the things we did is we actually wanted to sign because we wanted to reinforce our commitments to gender equality. Before even signing on, we've actually always been engaged with different UN initiatives, towards gender equality and even just gender building. Females, of course, but also males. So it was actually a great opportunity. And I mean, I was actually in charge of getting the signatories and the quotes from the MD. And honestly, I'm part of the C-suite. Just the welcoming attention I got from him. I mean, I wasn't surprised, but it was really appreciated. So, I mean, and with that, I mean, there are different things we had put in place, policies and all that. Well, I think we'll get into how we've used it. But there were just different things that we put in place prior to that we just had to go and look back to ensure that we were picking the low-hanging fruits.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Sherry. It's really encouraging to hear how excited lots of times CEOs are, or the C-suite in general, to sign up to the WEPs and how it can not only be a good moral thing to do, but it's also good for business. Olu, on to you.
Thank you. We started advocating for gender inclusion in business, but more so in the renewable energy sector around 2014. So we started the solar energy company in 2012, and we still focus on off-grid electrification. So going to villages, one thing that I've noticed in rural West Africa, where I've spent a lot of time, is that if you really want to make a new technology more like available or accessible to everyone, you need to integrate, or first you need to start talking to women in the village, because they are the one impacted the most by some of the technologies that we are offering. So 2014, 2 years into the solar energy business, but we realized that if we can start training women, village women, to be solar technicians, meaning like to start installing small solar panels that can provide lights for them, then it will be easier for those solar women technicians to convince their husband. Most of the time, in some of the communities where we work, men hold the cash, but women are making the decision. And because men is holding the cash, we often think that men are in power, but it's not really true. So for us back then, it made business sense to integrate women into our programs and what we do. So starting from there, other solar energy companies in Sierra Leone, in Ghana, and some in Nigeria, they developed the same approach. We train, I think, more than 500 village women to become solar technicians. And this really helped advocate or push our campaign to use solar energy or renewable energy as electrification source in off-grid communities. So starting electric mobility in West Africa with Zed Motors, we try to design the same, we try to use the same approach. So what we have noticed traveling from Eastern Africa, Kenya, all the way to West Africa is that in the public transportation sector, there's almost zero women. We use a lot of two-wheelers, motorcycles, to take goods and people from point A to point B in most African cities. But if you observe the cities, you will not see even a single woman driving a motorcycle. And same thing goes with taxis, like four-wheelers, taxis. So we said, okay, we are revolutionizing an industry. We are trying to get rid of all petrol motorcycles from our cities. So introducing electric motorcycle, we can just use gender equations. Like once we start introducing electric motorcycles, the first drivers can be women. So when we want to lease motorcycle out to people, can we say we will lease it out to women first and then men second? Doing that, we are introducing electric mobility, but we are also integrating gender into the transportation industry as a whole. So the impact will be more visible. We start seeing women driving two-wheelers. It's just, at first it's shocking, but it will change the mindset, how people see women in our communities. So we launched the program and one of our co-founders, Kristen, she is in charge of legal compliance and business development. She actually was doing some research for us to find some partners, and she found the Women Initiative at the UN WEP, and then reach out. That's kind of how we learn about WEP and the beautiful work that you guys are doing.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much, Ulu. And we're excited to welcome Zed Motors as pretty recent WEP signatories, especially as your mission of getting more women involved in the public transportation sector, the mobility sector, these sectors that are traditionally male dominated, really does tie in with the WEP's principles in general, and specifically principle 4 too, encouraging the professional development of women in traditionally male dominated sectors. So that's really great to hear. Harriet, what about you from Boozies?
Okay, so when we started our sustainability journey, our priority was to ensure that we are internally and externally accountable to the goals we set and adapt best practices in decision making. Thus, we set out to join recognized communities that united and supported businesses to advance sustainability. Now, given the industry statistics around gender and women in tech, we prioritize gender equality as a sustainability target, which informed the decision to join WEPs. Signing on to WEPs has provided significant benefits, including access to the resources to support policy and initiative development, and then tools to support monitoring and evaluation of our progress, resources and events that improve our employees' understanding of gender equality have been incorporated into our learning and growth program for staff, And then collaboration with other business leaders to discuss how to address gender equality strategically through the programs that you do. And then lastly, the brand association is also beneficial for business development and recruitment, getting more women in tech, and then basically creating an enabling environment to ensure that the organization does not have the high rate of women leaving the organization as you see in the tech industry generally. So that has been our motivation for joining WEPs, and then some of the benefits that we've enjoyed so far.
Oh, that's great. And yeah, that is a really wonderful point too, that when you join the WEPs community, when you sign on to be a signatory, you're joined by a community of now it's over 6,000 companies who have all committed to advancing gender equality through the same statement of support, even from their CEO. So you're really joining like a like-minded community, all working together to advance corporate sustainability in that way. So thanks so much for that. Okay, Sherry, now I'd like to go back to you and hear a little bit more about how you're implementing the WEPs and what plans Ecoelectricity specifically has to scale implementation of the WEPs.
Okay. I mean, for us, I mentioned that, we've had some other like gender equality initiatives that we've been working on. So one of the things we did, I mean, joining and signing up to the WEP, right? That kind of give us a badge of honor. I mean, and we take it seriously. So we actually now looked at some of the initiatives we already had in place. So we so let me even speak about some of our educational things. We had like energy clubs where we actually went out to different schools to actually to teach the students and all that. So once we even kind of joined WEP, we actually included more female only schools. We added them to even the pool of schools that we actually go to attend to them. Other things that we did, we have vendor consultative forums where once a quarter we get all our vendors. Now, I'm in the utility industry, so we have a lot of technical vendors that we need. So when we have actually these quarterly meetings with them, we actually are promoting that. One of the biggest meter providers within the country actually is owned by a female MD. So we're actually proud of that. We support her. I mean, and she's one of our biggest supplier in terms of meters. So all those initiatives and all that we actually work with. Now, when it comes to even policies, we had to actually go back and revisit policies. And I know I saw a question there that was asking about what are just some of the simple practical things that we can do. And that's one of the things within our companies, we all have different policies in place. It's actually pulling those policies back and seeing what we can do to tweak it. Now, some of the ones that we've tweaked, is we have the equal opportunity employment policy. We actually had to pull back and we tweaked to kind of put some gender equality initiatives in there. We have succession planning. That was actually another big one for us. So we're not saying that you're gonna give those females those positions, but they are going to be equipped. They're going to be trained to actually get those have those positions and be able to fill those positions when the time comes. So part of that also, as you noted, is training. So with the USAID initiatives, a lot of things that we did after we signed up with WEP is actually continue those educational sessions for just females within the company. So you have mid to lower level females where they actually join different training sessions and all that. Now, another one policy which I think was very good is the career progression. We pulled back a policy on that to just tweak it to make sure that that it actually includes just gender equality initiatives in there. Now, one policy that I think we actually had to go and get review on was our dress code policy. Now, we had written it, I mean, and just from an African nation, we had written out the dress code policy, but of course, we actually submitted it to the UN Initiative Forum because we wanted them to look at it and make sure that it was the policy that made females comfortable. And there was quite a bit that they actually tweaked within that policy to either for us to tone down or for us to include just to make the female gender comfortable with the policy. So I think for me, these are some of the things that we did that different companies can actually work on. They all have policies in place. Those are the low-hanging fruits. Pull back those policies, look at them, just make sure that they're balanced to the female gender and all them, and other initiatives that they have in place. Thank you.
Yeah, there are a lot of great points you made there, but especially just that you don't have to totally reinvent the wheel when you sign up to the WEPs. Companies already have good programs or policies in place that can even just be tweaked or improved by smaller, more low-hanging fruit, like you said, opportunities to really excel progress on corporate sustainability and women's empowerment. And then Olu, I'm gonna now ask you the same question. I know Zed Motors is a pretty recent signatory to the WEPs, but do you have any plans on implementing the WEPs? And if so, what are they?
Thank you. Thank you. Good question. This is one of the reasons that my company joined WEP. It's like I'm already learning a lot of stuff that we can do, policies and things that we can integrate in our business. So for us, back in 2014, integrating gender into our marketing strategies and the business was also, it makes sense, it makes business sense for us to do that. Our programs around gender inclusion were mainly focused on training women to be advocates for our technologies, right? But now within the company itself, we haven't really taken into consideration developing policies just around like gender inclusion. So recently something happened about 5 months ago before we joined WEP. One of our employees, she wasn't really comfortable leaving her daughter at home because she's living in a neighborhood that's not that's safe for her. So she had an event at home where her mom, she's a single mom and she's living with her mother. So the grandmother is taking care of the daughter when she's not there, and the daughter is 3 years old. So apparently no one was at home. So the daughter is hanging out with the neighbors, and one of the neighbors' boy, 7 years old, inappropriately touched the 3-year-old daughter. And then she reported that back to me. So what I said is simple, like bring your daughter to work, because it's the holiday season and school will start in I think school is starting in a week. So the daughter has to be at home for 2-3 months. So I said, okay, bring your daughter to work with you. So she's coming to work with her mother every day. There's the beauty in it. Now the employees, when they're on their break time, they hang out with the daughter. Another employee, he's a male, but he's only living with his son. He's 2 years old. So he's now bringing his son and they play at work. So I created an area for them to bring their kids. It's like sort of daycare, but employees taking care of the other employees' kids. It's fun, I love it. And now we are trying to develop a policy around that, where we'll spread out to all of our offices around the country, where employees can bring their kids to work. Along those lines, since we joined WEP, I've been learning a lot and reading about how we can develop other policies to make coming to work easier for the women in our companies.
Oh yeah, that's great. That's a really good example of creating a family-friendly workplace, of course, which is so important to the WEPs. But then also, we keep talking about how the WEPs are meant to advance gender equality across the workplace, marketplace, and community. And that's a really great example of how your employees aren't just existent within the four walls of your companies, but they have families, they live in communities, and your gender equitable practices in your company can affect the entire community. So that's really great to hear. Harriet, now I know Boozies has been our longest WEP signatory on the panel. You've been a signatory for the WEPs for a couple of different years. So I'd like to hear now also from you how you're implementing the WEPs since becoming a signatory a few years ago.
Okay, thank you. So we're implementing the WEPs by mainly using accessible tools and resources in the community, such as the WEPs Gender Analysis Gap Tool, as a guide to setting and tracking gender goals and initiatives that we undertake. So using the tools and participating in programs has helped us know our current state and goals around policy, implementation, monitoring and evaluation, and reporting on progress on our goals. We plan to scale implementation by having the WEPs Gender Analysis Tool become a part of our standard operations for our human resource department in identifying, addressing, and assessing and reporting on our gender-related strategic goals. So currently, for example, in our monthly reports and meetings with management and the board, we report on gender statistics across all levels of the organizations and then discuss initiatives to address any existing gaps. Another thing that WEPs has also inspired in the organization is that through our journey, our own transformation journey as an organization and the different benefits we've gotten from initiatives developed for our employees and our customers, is also inspired the development of a new business unit, which is our corporate sustainability consulting service, where we manage the development and implementation of corporate sustainability programs for organizations with critical sustainability mandates like energy, mining, and agriculture. Another thing that we also have upcoming is our youth innovation program to attract more women in tech through professional and entrepreneurial pathways in our core business.
Wow, that's great to hear. So many wonderful programs and use of the different existing tools and resources available to WEP signatories. Thanks so much for sharing. The next question I'd like to pose to each of you is how you went about securing the internal buy-in required to sign the WEPs. And if you do have any other recommendations or advice specifically to getting the CEO statement of support, that would be really great to hear. And Sherry, I think we'll pass it back over to you. And you already touched on this briefly, but if you have any other tips or recommendations, that would be great.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I did touch on it. As I said, honestly, it was very easy for us. It was very easy for us, and it was a delight, honestly, to get it through. I mean, on our C-suites alone, we actually are 50% females. So, I mean, and in terms of the entire 11 distribution companies within Nigeria, I mean, we're actually the highest when it comes to just that gender ratio. I mean, other things that, what I'll recommend really, right, is something that I think the last panelist just spoke about, which I spoke about. So we had board meetings last week. I think if we're able to sell it to the board from even from a reporting standpoint, I mean, and that's actually a key way to be able to sell it, right? You sell it from a company reporting standpoint, it becomes an attractive, well, it satisfies different things, but also it becomes an attractive badge for investors. Because with the SDGs and the ECGs that are out there, companies want to hear how investors or potential investors want to hear how these companies are actually, you know, working to achieve the SDGs. So I think it's important that if we are able to sell it to our board of directors, the management team from that perspective, and that would help a bit. I mean, I didn't have to go that route, but even after that, after we signed up, one of the things I actually noted during our last board meeting was we need to start reporting how we're achieving the SDG goals, the SD goals, and also the ECG goals, which is very important because that's what the outside world is looking to see from us.
Yeah, definitely. We always emphasize that gender equality and corporate sustainability isn't only the morally right thing to do, but it also is really good for business. So that is a great point as you're securing the buy-in needed to sign the WEPs. Olu, now passing it over to you with the same question.
Thank you. We just signed the agreement, but one thing I can add as a tip is more awareness, because it's through online research that we found WEP. We didn't know the program existed. And the other thing is that we companies advocating for more gender inclusion in our businesses, we can work with WEP as to design sort of for these type of webinars in our countries. I'm giving an example. I just like to be practical. So you can say each companies per country or per country, signatories companies can get together and have like an hour webinar in their country, inviting other businesses. That's another way to let other businesses know that there's such a program that's called WEP, and the policy that we can put in place as a whole to make the workplace safe and better for women, and how to integrate women in our businesses as well, offer professional training and things like that. So yeah, in a more practical way, that's what I think we can add. And also the companies sign with WEP needs to provide maybe on a yearly basis concrete steps and actions toward gender inclusion and equality.
Yeah, that's a great point, that when companies start focusing on gender equality and corporate sustainability, then they want to work with other companies who are like-minded in this way. And it really creates a wonderful community of like-minded companies all working to advance sustainability. Harriet, now I'll pass it over to you with the same question of how you secured the internal buy-in to sign the WEPs.
So first, we defined gender equality as a strategic goal. And this was very easy because our CEO is already very passionate and committed to advancing sustainability through business. We then began researching ways to ensure that organization is accountable for all its sustainability goals internally and externally. So WEPs for us was one of the ways to ensure that we remain accountable to our strategic gender goals. Aside from strategic alignment, we also emphasize cross-functional approach to ensuring internal buy-in. At Boozies, gender is not defined as a human resource related goal, but a corporate goal for which every functional unit is responsible for. So for marketing, the value was in aligning our sustainability commitment to globally recognized community that shares our vision to build an added advantage for investors, customers, and partners. For human resources, WEPs, for example, is an avenue to gain access to resources to inform policy and employee development on gender. And for engineering team, it's an initiative to help attract more women to tech roles that are advertised and then getting the best talent as well. So in that regard, once we realized that if you phrase gender as a cross-functional goal, everyone becomes concerned and more or less takes action to advance that goal internally. And to sum it up, my recommendation is that organizations looking at securing internal buy-in to sign into WEPs, first, get leadership of your organization to see the relationship between gender equality and the bottom line. Once you can make that clear relationship, it's easier to gain buy-in from leaders. And then to internalize or implement whatever strategy that you've gotten, always phrase it as a cross-functional discussion. When you're having gender initiatives, create an enabling environment for buy-in. And everyone has to see how they can gain and create value in your gender initiative as an organization.
Thank you so much, Harriet. Lots of good points made there, especially the cross-functionality of gender equality across the whole organization. It's not just supposed to sit in one department. And then also that the WEPs are a public commitment. So it really does hold the company accountable to advancing gender equality in that way. So cognizant of time, we only have 1 minute left. I just wanted to hand it back over to Anna Falk, the head of the WEP Secretariat, to provide any closing remarks. And thank you again for all three of our wonderful panelists today. It was really great to hear from all of you on your commitments to the WEPs.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, the UN Global Compact team, Megan in particular, that has been moderating this fantastic discussion. Thank you so much to Olo, Harriet, and Sherry for your insights into how it is to be a WEP signatory. And thank you so much to all the participants that have kept us so busy in the last hour. We've been trying to respond to all the questions. And unfortunately, it was impossible to answer all of them, but we'll try to go through them afterwards and reach out to you as needed. I have also taken note on some interesting topics that are based on your questions in terms of the cumulative effects of ageism, sexism, racism, etc. And I've shared a document that we prepared on intersectionality that really talks about how different types of discrimination adds up, and some women are having more challenges than others. We also have other resources that really show that we have a guidance on racism specifically that also highlights how these are bringing huge gaps in pay and in other areas. So please do dive into our 200 plus resources and tools that we have made available for you. They're there to help you. There was also a very interesting question that maybe we can pick up in the future for our thematic webinar series that also talk about the men's engagement and how that impacts women's potential to earning power and career progression. So there are many very interesting topics that we've seen today based on your questions, but also your recommendations. And just to kind of add that what we've seen today and what we heard today is that this agenda is for all of us. It's for men, it's for women, it's for everyone. And it benefits all of us. It benefits us privately, as we heard about the childcare, for example, professionally, but also our organizations, and how, if we are going into the commercial side of the company, we can expand markets, we can expand customer segments, and at the same time, advancing gender equality and women's empowerment. Just finally, there has been a lot of questions about the recording. Yes, we will make the recording available. We'll share it, and we'll also put it on the website under resources. And I also realized that there's a lot of questions that you can also listen to previous recordings that tackle issues of reporting and other topics that you've been asking for. So this has been an amazing session with so much activity and so many questions and people from all over the world. So thank you, everyone. And thanks also to the team, the UN Global Compact team, and Miwa, my colleague at UN. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.